Keep it going for Brody. Come on up, Brody.
That's good. Thank you. Hello, everyone. When I was 12, my buddy John invited me to go to a sleepaway sports camp with him. And I loved sports, and I liked John, and my parents liked John's parents, so it felt like a good fit, and we accepted the invitation. And it was my first time away from home, so I was nervous. But my mom took me to camp, and she moved me in, and we walked onto the campgrounds, and it was magic. The beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina. There was a crystal clear lake with one of those giant inflatable blue and white blobs that you jumped off the high dive onto, and it launched you into the water. And there was water skiing and zip lining, and my favorite part, the camp canteen, where you could go and spend your allowance on those oversized ice cream cones with the chunk of chocolate in the bottom. And I met the boys in my bunk, and I liked them, and I loved my counselors. I thought they were freaking cool, because they both liked Michael Jordan. And at that point in my life, that was my litmus test for a person's character. And they also played guitars, which I hadn't cared about at all until I met them. But then I met them, and I thought guitars were also Michael Jordan level important. So I wasn't nervous about telling my mom goodbye anymore. I essentially shooed her out the door. I said, I'll see you in a few weeks. And I prepared to embrace my camp experience. I felt like I was in heaven. Well, I thought I felt like I was in heaven. That was just an expression I had heard. I didn't know what it was like to be in heaven, but I was about to learn, and I was about to learn right then, because I had just started unpacking my bag when one of the counselors yells, "Bible study!" And all my co-campers instinctively grab their Bibles and just scurry to the center of the room, and they sit down in a circle and they cross their legs. They knew just what to do, because they knew something about this camp that I didn't know. This was not just a sports camp. This was a deeply religious sports camp for conservative and Christian youth. I didn't know if I was conservative. I hadn't heard the word much in my house, so I assumed that I wasn't. But I definitely knew I wasn't Christian because my parents are Jewish. They're not yarmulkes Jewish, but they're Jewish enough that this King James Bible that I was supposed to have brought to camp, I had never heard of that before. But I had just gotten to camp, and I loved it, and I was so excited, and I wasn't going to let a little thing like Jesus ruin it for me. So I decided that I would learn everything there is to know about him. And I don't know if you guys know about him, but he rocks, okay? Turns water into wine, heals the sick. I won't bore you with all the details, but take it from me, Jesus is awesome. And I needed Jesus at that moment in my life because I had just done some pretty bad stuff in the 6th grade, and I felt guilty about it. I cheated on the final exam in my social studies class. I had a copy of the map, and I taped it on my leg underneath my shorts. And even worse than that, I had gone into my dad's closet and stolen one of his Playboys. So I felt bad, but I didn't have to anymore because it could all be wiped away. I just had to begin my life as a Christian and give myself to Jesus. And giving myself to Jesus was fun. He comes with games and songs. At night, my counselors would bust out their electric guitar, and we'd sit around the fire with my friendly conservative co-campers, and we would sing and jam late into the night. They were like a bunch of little Brett Kavanaughs before they discovered beer. And they used Michael Jordan references to teach me about the kingdom of heaven. So by the second night of camp, I was a full-on convert. And by the second week of camp, I'm leading Bible study. I'm counseling the other boys in my bunk. Like, dude, it's cool to question your faith, okay? I was a Jew when I got here. So the camp was proud of me. I mean, that was a big story at camp because I had a soul that was headed to hell, and they saved me. So they decided to honor me by letting me give the prayer before Sunday night dinner on the last night of camp. And the only prayers I knew by heart were ones that I'd heard in friends' bar mitzvahs, which weren't going to play well. So I just cobbled together some of my favorite things that I'd heard my counselors say. And I said, you sent your only begotten son and used this food to nourish our bodies so that we may better serve you. In hindsight, it was probably a lousy prayer, but on that night, I felt like a young Billy Graham leading a revival. So I head home from camp, and I am psyched to tell my mom and dad about Jesus. I wonder if they've heard of him. And I feel pretty confident that they haven't because we would have been pursuing everlasting life with more zeal, I would think. So I get off the plane, and I've got my Bible clutched to my chest, and I walk up to my mom in the terminal, and I say, "Mom, I want to be baptized." And she said, "Talk to your father." So I asked my dad, and he said, no. So I was bummed, but I wasn't going to be deterred because camp had warned me this would happen, that God would send non-believers to question and test my commitment. I didn't know it would be my parents, but it didn't matter. Nothing was going to shake my faith I had just spent 5 entire weeks building. But then I walked into my bedroom, and I found that Playboy. Then about a minute or so later, I went over and checked my mail, and I discovered that while I was at camp, Sarah Kruglich, the cutest girl in school, the love of my 12-year-old life, had written me a letter to tell me that she missed me. So she was my girlfriend now, I guess. And I really wanted to make out with my new girlfriend. And I didn't know how Jesus would feel about it. So I had no choice. I abandoned my religion, and I pursued my goal of making out with Sarah. Unsuccessfully. So it didn't last long, but my conversion that summer was real. The powerful want to know God and the pull of religion and faith, that was real for me. I'm not a Christian or a Jew or a believer, but I got there on my own, and I'm really happy that I did, because I have an 11-month-old son now, and I spend a lot of time thinking about his future. And it'll be a while before he chooses his path, but my plan is to introduce him to the major religions as important things that you should understand if you want to be an enlightened person. And I'm going to do the best that I can to present that without prejudice or judgment, right up until the moment he tells me he wants to be baptized. And I will respond, talk to your mom. Thank you all.